Taylor Swift's 12th studio album, The Life of a Showgirl, was a divisive release, to put it mildly. Its leading single, The Fate of Ophelia, broke charting records by far and away margins, but the album overall got some of the worst reviews that Swift has ever received in her career. There were die-hard fans who were immensely disappointed by this album. I know this for a fact, because I exist, and I was immensely disappointed by this album. In fact, that's too generous. I hated this album a lot. I was overwhelmed by how abhorrent I found this collection of songs. When I haven't vibed with an album from Taylor Swift right away in the past, I've always assumed that I'm yet to catch up with her. She's just a little bit ahead of my timeline and taste, and I'll get there eventually. And this has been proven time and time again. For me, Reputation, which I initially bristled at, but now Getaway Car was in the top 15 songs of my last year. Folklore, which I liked, but I didn't initially have on repeat, but now I consider The Last Great American Dynasty to be one of her best songs, if not one of the best songs of all time. Midnights, which I found title accordingly mid at first, but I've now recently found myself returning to. I think I had to hit my mid-20s to truly appreciate why Antihero is the leading single. It's me. Hi, I am the problem. It's me. Taylor Swift is and always has been a cultural chameleon. She and the team of people around her who help produce and market her music have consistently morphed her sound around the moment in a way that until now has never swung performative, allowing her distinctive songwriting voice to be the through line between albums that always seem to find the exact sound that everyone's craving. That's how you win Album of the Year 4 times. Adapting. But think back to what the culture was leaning towards when she was in the process of writing The Life of a Showgirl. It was a little unsavory. No, my thesis here is that The Life of a Showgirl, knowingly or unknowingly, adapted to the wrong culture. There was a brief, terrifying, shining moment where conservatives thought they had the upper hand in arts and entertainment, and while that moment is thankfully over, The Life of a Showgirl is the unfortunate outcome that has already become outdated. A bad prediction. A risky bet that did not pay off. I'm going to go song by song to prove this thesis here today, and I'm going to talk about my initial reaction to each track and how that track plays into the greater conservative culture vibe that this album is radiating. 2 disclaimers. 1, I love Taylor Swift. I'm being serious. I don't have photos, but I was at the Red Tour at the Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with a poster board that was larger than I was at the time, that my sister and I had spent hours decorating with the hopes that we would be one of the lucky fans chosen to meet her after the show based on that sign. We had light up elements built into that thing. We did not get chosen. She's clocked a spot in the top 5 artists for me for the past 6 years in a row. And that's honestly just how often Apple Music has been giving us end of year recaps. It's probably every year since iTunes was invented. I am not coming from a perspective of hatred here. 2, I am not saying Taylor Swift is a conservative. I have no way of knowing her political views beyond what she has said publicly, in which she has aligned herself with center-leaning Democrats. I have no way of knowing what she thinks of politics now. I am making no claims about what she personally believes politically. I'm certainly not claiming that this album makes her a Trumpy or whatever, but conservative culture has its own set of ideals and values and aesthetics beyond black and white Trumpism, and I think that culture is what's influencing this album. So let's start off by defining this brief conservative cultural renaissance that we saw in late 2023 leading into 2024. Around this time last year, New York Magazine dropped a generational cover story, The Cruel Kids Table, out late with the young right as they contemplate cultural domination. This was shortly after the 2024 election, Trump having just started his second term. Despite the photographer whacking them over and over with this spread, these losers felt like hot shit. They really thought they were taking over the world. The concepts and cultural aspects that they valued were really taking over the conversation at the time. The clean girl, old money outfit inspiration, and trad wife cooking tutorials were clogging up everybody's algorithm. And while none of these trend topics overtly promote the political right, they are the visual framework of conservative utopia. Submitting to your husband, upkeeping your appearance and adherence to strict standards, and dressing to mimic Reagan-era socialites all play into the aesthetics of conservatism. Top podcasters like Joe Rogan were spouting right-leaning talking points in between Simply Safe ad reads. Energy of conservatism was infecting the zeitgeist. It seemed like that was what the people wanted. Flash forward to now, 2026, and conservatives are back at the bottom of pop culture hierarchy. They are dweebs once more. Trump is making horrendous and horrifying choices to continue digging his approval rating into the 30s, and most likely in response to sentiments about actual politics, the conservative aesthetic is lame again. The fashion styles have now phased out in the rapid churning of trend cycles. Bad Bunny Bowl was one of the most viewed Super Bowl halftime shows of all time, racking up 4.157 billion views in 24 hours, while Turning Point's rinky-dink talent show was only viewed at to point and laugh. Alex Shepard writes about it for The New Republic. The biggest story of the last year is that Trump has, in a very short amount of time, squandered most of his political capital by running a belligerent, unlawful, and fascist regime. But the second biggest is that the right has squandered all of the cultural capital this election has brought them. A year ago, it seemed like the right was on the verge of total dominance throughout American society. Now they're back to pretending to like Kid Rock, while everyone in the country gets to enjoy the real Super Bowl halftime show. This quote is from a broader article titled "The Hilarious Decline of MAGA's Brief Cultural Relevance," and it's true. It has been hilarious. They were cool for like 5 months, and they let it erode the country and legitimately get people killed, before fumbling the spotlight and resigning themselves to perpetual loserdom. So The Life of a Showgirl was released on October 3rd, 2025. The creation and conception of this album most likely occurred in the Cruel Kids Table timeframe. There's no doubt that every musician is somehow influenced by the world around them, and Taylor Swift herself and her team of producers have the budget and capability to be influenced by basically the entire country, especially if that country is seemingly moving towards one type of culture. But by the time Showgirl was out in the world, the right had already blew it. So not only is this album incredibly bland pop music in comparison to the rest of Swift's discography, its strangely conservative themes fall on even deafer ears. Okay, song-by-song analysis time to help me prove why I'm making this claim, maybe convince you if you've hate-watched this video so far. Starting with The Fate of Ophelia. I will stand by the note I wrote on the first listen to this song. The lyrics are unbelievably reductive of the story of Ophelia in Shakespeare's Hamlet and her decision to herself, but that's honestly a whole separate video. I will spare you the feminist theater theory for now. This lead single and opening track just drones over and over about how falling in one true love with a football star saved Swift from suicidal action and ideation. And you cannot tell me that isn't a conservative anthem. It's the future they want for America. The lyrics talk about sitting alone in her tower while he's honing his powers. Powers to what, girl? What happened to not needing a man to succeed? Apparently now we need one just to stay alive? Swift also talks in these lyrics about swearing loyalty to herself as a negative thing, something that almost killed her, metaphorically, of course. I understand metaphors. And this man had to come save her from that line of thinking. You know how I know this is a conservative anthem? Trump's socials team used it, playing on the Pledge Allegiance line in a heinous video praising Trump and Vance, to which Swift obviously responded by telling them, nothing. Funny. Elizabeth Taylor. Listening to this song again for this video, I did not hate it as much. It's sort of fun. Still boring, in a way that I've heard a zillion songs like this. On the themes, however, an entire song hinging on a reference to a 1950s movie actress? Like, come on. Conservatives love that shit. They love that era. They idolize that era. It's playing towards that whole old money aesthetic in the modern day. Even in the production, mixes of contemporary drum beats under these old-timey piano licks spliced in. I can picture a Cruel Kids Table-esque girl lip-syncing to this song on TikTok, dressed in Shein knockoffs of old Hollywood styles. Opalite. Don't let the fun pop beat fool you. This song is once again claiming that a man solved everything for her. Swift just uses lyricism for this one that is somehow blander than anything she's ever written in the past. And it sucks, because the music video for this song was pretty fun. It's practically the same themes as Fate of Ophelia, but she's just not as intense about it. So we'll move on. Father Figure. The lyrics to this song are frankly hard to listen to. I drink that brown liquor is the least cool way to talk about whiskey, which is a pretty cool thing just on its basis. So it's really hard to make it that uncool. This song is a little harder to justify in the conservative themes because it does portray Swift in a position of power, which as a woman, big no-no in the conservative community. But I think this track is definitely still leaning towards the old money style and aesthetics that conservatives drool over. Conservatives also love people who talk incessantly about their wealth and success, evident by who they elected president. And lo and behold, said president used this track in a socials video as well, framing Trump as the father figure, playing a clip of the assassination attempt for the wrong trigger line, and claiming the entire empire belongs to him. Gross. And you'd think this video, which came after the Fate of Ophelia video, would finally bait Swift into making a statement, right? The Trump administration using Swift's music to further their imperial and dictatorial conquests. That should make Swift's team activate, especially when they're notoriously litigious with Swift's discography in the past. But it wasn't enough. Strange. Eldest daughter. Jesus Christ, this fucking song. It's humiliating. A track 5 fumbled so bad. Lyrics like, every joke's just trolling and memes. What is she even saying? Afflicted by a terminal uniqueness. We all dressed up as wolves, and we looked fire. The entire chorus. I can't believe this song was released. It was painful to revisit this song, honestly, because I aim to pretend that it doesn't exist, to protect my mind palace from collapse. This song is millennial, woe is me, final boss. And if there's one thing conservatism loves, it's self-victimization. Their entire culture is dependent on in-groups and out-groups, loyalty and traitors. The lyrics here really feed into that aspect of their values. Ruin the friendship. I'm basically skipping this song. I actually kind of enjoyed it. It's not her best work by far. Pretty basic, catchy pop song with a compelling little story. But up against the rest of this album, it is a shining light that maybe the Taylor Swift that I loved is somewhere still in there. Actually romantic. The weak punches that this song pulls are eerily similar to the kind of burns that conservatives are obsessed with. There's also something vaguely conservative culture coded about using the idea of someone as the same gender as you having romantic feelings for you as a dig. Does that make sense? I feel like I just said a very long sentence. It's the entire conceit of the song that the person that Swift is dissing, who we understand to be a woman based on the lyrics, is actually in unrequited love with Swift, and that's gay, and is therefore an insult? It just seems conservative to me. Wish list. I mean, I even said it in my first reaction. This song is another one that really drives the overwhelming conservative culture theming home. Swift laments that she no longer wants to be a complex female character. This song riled me the fuck up, dude. When you're a woman, having a loving relationship with a man and freedom are not mutually exclusive, or at least they shouldn't be. And I'm not saying Swift isn't allowed to have feelings like this or else set back the whole feminist movement. It's just not at all what she's previously iterated about her desires or her personality. Think back to songs like Midnight Rain, The Man, just recent examples of her not wanting to be defined by her traditional gender role in society and not wanting to play into the traditional stereotypes of womanhood. All of a sudden she's chill with it. She actually yearns for it. Conveniently when trad life living is trendy. It's also so hypocritical because as much as she romanticizes this lifestyle in this song, she's certainly not going to adhere to it. Taylor Swift is the biggest pop star on earth. She's gonna continue doing that. But her young audience, who have yet to decide how they're going to live their lives, might take the message to heart in this song. Taylor Swift didn't sign up to be a beacon of feminism, I suppose, but this song, it just pissed me off. Wood. This song is so confusing. Production-wise, on another listen, my reaction is so real. I wish they just committed to the sonic space that they were trying to reference here. Everything on this album actually just sounds so basic and underproduced, but this is about themes, not about production. I listen to this song and my brain wants to have a good time. It feels like it wants to get there, but it never actually gets to have a good time. In terms of what this video is about, the conservative undertones, nothing of note beyond the I worship my boyfriend theme, which again, is very conservative coded. Cancelled. Hearing this song for the first time was what made me first consider this theory, because honestly, what the fuck was this? How on earth did her and her team not expect this to be viewed as some kind of anthem for the far right? Reputation already exists and uses such nuance and fascinating lyricism to make this point so much more eloquently. This is another song that I just try to pretend never happened. Honey. This song is interesting. It's an interesting breakdown of misogyny and experiencing misogynistic advances, and then after falling in love, her perspective changing. It could be sweet. It could be fun. But This track straight up uses the word bitch towards another woman in quite a derogatory manner. And maybe I'm too woke, but yeesh. I did not like that. I did not feel good about that. Especially in yet another song where she's praising a man like he's a god. It's never been something Swift has done in her songwriting, and yes, I know plenty of other musical artists do it, but Swift has always prided herself on refusing to tear down other women, and standing up for herself when other parts of the culture have made misogynistic attacks on her name. A la that Ginny and Georgia line that she put on blast. That represents a perceived conservative swing in the culture to me. That Swift was confident, thinking she would be okay putting out a song that uses the word bitch like this into the culture. The Life of a Showgirl. This song is a representation to me of what this album might have been, what it could have been, if it was written in literally any other frame of time. A fun jaunt into the dreamscape of what we understand fame to be, and Swift stripping away the varnish to show us what it's really like. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. So here's my final conclusion. This album isn't openly promoting any right-wing politics. Conservative theming and imagery is all over this track list, most likely because it was growing in popularity during the time of the album's conception and was assumed to only keep getting more and more popular. The enormous team behind the cultural machine that is Taylor Swift has correctly predicted a bunch of cultural moments in the past. Fearless topped the charts with country pop earworms, creating a style that soared in popularity after its release. 1989 unequivocally defined the new pop sound in the mid-2010s. None of you can actually even talk me down about 1989. That album is everything to me. Folklore and Evermore, with their subdued production and their fictional escapist storytelling, were perfectly indicative of what the culture wanted during pandemic isolation. Even Midnights evokes the hazy confusion of returning to real life after the pandemic, with experimental lo-fi influences that sound exactly like songs that ended up blowing up on TikTok after the album's release. Swift and her team have a great track record of figuring out where the culture is going to go next. I think they just bet on the wrong horse here, producing for a more conservative culture that had fizzled out before they had the chance to capitalize on it. To wrap up, I always like to have a little call to action. I think that's a fun element to a video essay, and my call to action here is to apologize to Jack Antonoff. I think we all owe him an apology, frankly. He leaves for one album for unknown reasons, and we get this horror show. Never doubt my man again. If we would like to make a giant apology card, I'll be the first signature. I'll figure out how to print it. I just talked about 1989 and it reminded me of it, so now I'm going to add that back to my daily listening rotation and go back to pretending that The Life of a Showgirl was never released. Hope nobody is too angry at me. You can like this video, you can subscribe, you can do whatever you want. I'm also on Instagram, and I'm also on Twitter. I'll be back every 2 weeks or so with more stuff to say, so smash that bell or whatever for a notification on what I come up with next. Until then.